Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to stately Vaughan Manor, where it is time once again for my weekend reading report. It's my weekend reading report, and it's been a while since I did a weekend reading report. You know, I've been away from the channel for a long time. What's it been, about 3 weeks? I've been away from the channel for 3 weeks, and what? Well, it's felt like 3 weeks. Anyway, I decided to take a few days off because, you know, I was really busy and I was falling behind on things, and I felt like I needed to, connect with the real world or something. And then I turned on the news, and it turns out the real world sucks. So that was a bad idea. Remind me not to do that again. Anyway, I have returned with my weekend reading report, and I have been very busy. So, unfortunately, I didn't get quite as much reading done as I would have liked, and I don't even remember the last time I did one of these, honestly. But apparently it wasn't 3 weeks ago. So, what have I been reading? Well, the first thing I read since we last did this was this book. This is M.R. James. M.R. James. This is Collected Ghost Stories. Collected Ghost Stories of M.R. James. And the reason I chose to read this was because of Roger's Cheap Old Book Club. For October, Roger's pick for Roger's Cheap Old Book Club, Roger's Cheap Old Book Club, the cheapest book club around, Roger's pick was Ghost Stories. Was it of an Antiquary? I literally forget this every time because I don't have Ghost Stories of an Antiquary. Ghost Stories of an Antiquary, which was M.R. James' first ghost story collection. It's a slim little thing. And that was Roger's pick. You can get it free on Project Gutenberg, like all of Roger's picks. But I decided I would read the collected ghost stories. I'd read them all. So I have this cool Oxford edition. I read it. I loved it. It was fantastic. Perfect for this month. These creepy, ghoulish, ghostly stories. M.R. James was the master of the ghost story. And I will, sometime in the nearish future, have an episode of the essential classics of the essential classics of horror. If I can barely speak. I will have an episode of the essential classics of horror where I talk about this one in more detail. And then I followed that up with another classic of horror, and that would be this. It's Dracula. Dracula, this is my favorite, one of my favorite books. It's one of my favorite books, Dracula. And I've read this, I don't even know how many times I've read Dracula, and I decided, you know, I'm going to read Dracula again. Because again, I have to make a video for my Essential Classics of Horror series about Dracula. This is, in fact, the next one that I'm going to do. So it's always fun to revisit Dracula. And there is, you know, it's a funny thing about these classics. You always find something new or different in them every time you read them. At least I do. Perhaps it's because of the different times that I've read this book in my life. I'm always at a different place. And so I really enjoyed it. Dracula, it's great. It's a great book, Dracula. It's awesome. Some people will say it's not awesome, but those people are obviously wrong. Excuse me, I was interrupted. I'm always getting interrupted when I film these in the evening. Oh well. Where was I? Oh yeah, Dracula. So I was going to mention that this, I believe, was book number 79. I think it's 79 in my 500 book challenge. The problem is, and I discovered today that this was a problem, I've been keeping track of my 500 books on Goodreads. I have a shelf which I labeled 500, and that's how I'm keeping track. And I could have swore earlier today that I saw that this was number 79, and that I put the book I'm reading now on the shelf, and that brought it to 80. But then I just looked before I started filming, and now suddenly there isn't 80 books on the shelf anymore. There's only 79 books on the shelf. So I don't know if it's just I'm remembering wrong or Goodreads is doing this weird thing where it can't keep track of how many books are on the shelf, which has happened before. So what I'm really going to have to do is write them all down in a notebook, which requires effort, especially now that I'm already at either 79 or 80. It's a mystery. I Tomorrow Goodreads might say there's 81 books on the 500 book shelf. Goodreads, man, you suck. So at least there's a website and like Goodreads, that's a big time website, and its math skills are worse than mine. At least there's that. But other than the fact that I keep track of this on Goodreads, which, like I said, was a bad mistake, the 500 book challenge is going fine. It's going fine, actually. I'm surprised it's going as well as it is. Of course, the bad thing is that I started the 500 book challenge the last time CriminOlly and Greg at Another Bibliophile Reads and everybody, they all were doing the Read What You Own challenge. And I've been seeing on BookTube that the Read What You Own challenge is returning. It's returning. And I'm only on book 79 or possibly 80. And like CriminOlly read 100 books like months ago, and Greg read for his challenge 200, because he was doing the 500 book challenge for a little while, and he read 200 and something books before he gave that up. And I'm at book, well, either 79 or 80. I'll know once I write them all down, since Goodreads is completely unreliable. So yeah, that's Dracula. And what am I reading right at this moment, right at this very moment? I'm reading this book. It's The Talisman by Stephen King and Peter Straub. And I didn't intend to read this right now. I did a 12-book TBR video, which I should talk about for a second, because I've always had problems because of my schedule. Always, sometimes I'm really busy, sometimes I'm just moderately busy, sometimes I'm really busy again. It's hard for me to know how many books I'm going to be able to read in a month. So monthly TBRs have never really worked for me. So I thought, I'll just do like a 12-book TBR, and as soon as that TBR is done, I'll do another TBR. And so I did a 12-book TBR, but I think next time I do a TBR, it's going to be a 13-book TBR. And then when that's done, I'll do a 14-book TBR, and then a 15, and then a 16, and we'll just go from there. And eventually I'll have like a 50-book TBR or something. It'll be awesome. We'll see how that goes. But right now I'm reading this. And like I said, I hadn't intended to start this. I was going to read some other stuff because it's also Occult Detective October. So I was going to read some occult detective stuff. But I picked this up and I started reading the first page, and then I read the second page and the third page, and I'm like, oh man, what's going to happen to this guy's mom? That's, is she going to die? What's going on with this? And so before you knew it, I was reading the book, which happens sometimes. So this was the first book on the 12-book TBR video that I did, but it went and screwed up Occult Detective October, because this is a really big book, and I don't know how long it's going to take me to read it. Possibly the rest of October, we'll see, or at least a good chunk of it. This is at least, I think, a couple weeks, maybe, seeing how my schedule's gone. We'll see how it goes, though. But I've heard mixed things about this. Some people say it's good, some people say it's great, some people say it sucks, some people say it's boring. I've heard everybody that mentions this book says something different. So I'll tell you what I think about it in a week or two. I'm also reading Thor. You could be one of the handful of people that saw that video on Thor I did. So I'm reading in 1 year's time. I started on October 5th, and it will finish on October 5th, 2024. I'm reading the first volume of Thor. Basically, every Thor comic book that came out before Marvel did the ill-fated Heroes Reborn thing, where they rebooted a bunch of characters and canceled the Thor comic book. Thor, of course, came back, but Thor came back in Volume 2, and this was what, 95 or 96? It was in the mid-90s. So I'm reading every issue of Thor, or in this case, Journey into Mystery and then Thor, up until 1995. And I have to do it all by October 5th, 2024. And that should be doable. That should be doable. And so I'm reading, this is the first Thor Epic Collection. I'm filming this on Friday, so my weekend hasn't actually started yet. So I'm going to finish this over the weekend and start Volume 2 of the Epic Collections, because that's the way I have most of my issues of Thor that I'll be reading. Eventually, I'll run out of Epic Collections, and then I'll just have to read them digitally or however else I can get them. So yeah, I've also been reading Thor, and it's awesome. Thor is awesome. And I'm surprised that I'm enjoying these early issues of Thor as much as I am, because I remember these as all being the bad ones. And a lot of these are pretty bad. In fact, one of them is probably the worst Thor story ever. But I'm enjoying them tremendously. I'm having a good time with Thor. I'll talk more about this eventually. I don't know if I'll do like an update video for this particular challenge. I know most people are not interested in my comic book content, but, you know, what do you do? Hey, speaking of comic books, a couple things have shown up here at the Manor. Like this. This showed up here at the Manor. This is another Epic Collection. This is Ghost Rider Danny Ketch. Ghost Rider Danny Ketch. Volume 1. Which has Ghost Rider Danny Ketch. Danny Ketch was the second Ghost Rider from 1990 to 1991. And this is odd because when you were reading the comic book, it wasn't Ghost Rider Danny Ketch. It was just Ghost Rider. Like, this is the first issue of when Danny Ketch took over as Ghost Rider, and it's just Ghost Rider #1. Now, there's already a series, well, there's only one of them so far, of Ghost Rider Epic Collections. So you would think that this would be Ghost Rider Epic Collection Volume 7 or something, or whatever it would be. But no, it's Ghost Rider Danny Ketch Volume 1. Which is fine. This is good stuff, and I'm happy to see it collected. I was pretty happy to see this coming out, and I'm happy to have it. I would like them to come out with the second Ghost Rider, just like the classic collection. If they would just come out with a second one of those, that would be good too. But so far, Marvel's doing it right, man. They've got all this cool old stuff, and they're reprinting all of it. So, you know, that's pretty cool, especially when, you know, over at that other company, DC, they just can't get it together as far as reprinting stuff. Hey, speaking of cool reprints, also got this in the mail. This is Eerie. This was the companion magazine from Warren Publications to Creepy magazine. So Eerie and Creepy were the two anthology horror comics from Warren Publications. And, you know, they had great covers, and this series of books will reprint all of Eerie, just as they're reprinting all of Creepy. And they've got the letters pages and all the original stories and all the great artwork. Here's some Gene Colan artwork there. Gene Colan did a lot of stuff for Eerie and Creepy. So this was cool. This came in the mail. Normally, I would do a Sunday Comics where I read a stack of comics every Sunday, but I wasn't able to do that. I haven't been able to do that because I've just been too busy. The Sunday Comics actually take some time on Sundays, and lately on Sundays I haven't had any time, really. I've been so stupid busy. And that brings me back to my schedule. So as far as a video schedule going forward, it's just going to be unpredictable. Because sometimes I will make videos when I'm like half exhausted or fully exhausted, and they kind of suck. At least I think they do. So I'm thinking, well, maybe I just won't make videos when I'm physically exhausted, which means there will be probably fewer videos from me, at least in the near future. I'm thinking maybe 3 a week, maybe 4. You know, I don't even know. It depends on the week. It depends on the week. So unfortunately, this isn't going to be one of those channels where you can just be like when I started, I was doing one of these every day, and for some reason that worked. It doesn't work so well anymore. So I'm not one of those channels with like a really cool schedule where you know every day or every other day there's going to be a video. I don't know when the hell these are going to come out. So sorry about that. But I'll do my best. I'll do my best. So I will catch you whenever the next time I see you. Okay, guys, I will see you next time.